Well, in chapter 3, we're going to spend time talk about the neuron. And let's look at the nervous system. From you see the object, the food, the drink, and the physical signal, the light, the sound, the smells, go to your sensory, your five senses. And once they turn those physical stimulus into the electrical signal, and that's where your neurons start. So your nervous system, you have the sensory input, and they pick up the signal and they send them electrical signal to your integrating center. And your integrating center, you have a lot of neurons in the brain, and their job is to make the decision so you can control your body. That's the motor output. From here, control your muscle, and you're able to grab the food. So from here to here to here, all this nervous system. And the nervous system is a huge topic. Your nervous system can be divided into the central and the peripheral nervous system. Your central nervous system, you have the brain and the spinal cord. Both of them will protect. You have the skull, you have the vertebrae column. They protect these two. You cannot afford them get hurt. It causes too much damage. And your peripheral nervous system, including the nerve and the ganglia. The nerve are those bundles of axons together. We'll talk about the axon. That's the structure of the arm of the neuron. They extend out, and bundle of them together is called the nerve. And the ganglia is a cluster of the cell body of the neuron in the peripheral nervous system. We call it ganglia. So you have the central, you have the peripheral nervous system. And in your brain, you have a lot of cells, and these cells in the brain we call the neuron. These are the neuron. They are very unique shape, this triangle shape, the star shape. And they are able to create the electrical signal and also the chemical signal. The chemical signal is neurotransmitter. We'll talk about that part in Unit 2. In Unit 1, this part, we're going to talk about the electrical signal. So they create current, very small current. And your neuron is not the only one in your body create current. Your muscle also create current. You can put electrode on your skin and when you move your arm, we can record the muscle activity. We call it EMG. Or another one you are very familiar with. We put the electrode on your chest and record the electrical signal from your heart muscle. That's the EKG, right? Electrocardiography. And your muscle create electrical signal. Your neuron also create electrical signal. So they're able to create the electrical impulse. They're pretty small. When they get too big, some animals are able to use it to hunt, like electrical eel. They're able to create a big current to hunt the animal. And in humans' brain, when they create too much current, it's actually a disease called epilepsy. There's too much current happen in your brain. The neuron, very longevity. If you look at the old textbook, your neurons, they don't divide, they age with you. So if your neuron are 20 years old, you are 20 years old, your neuron are 20 years old. If you are 60, your neuron are 60 years old. The new textbook in the 21st century, we found 2 to 3 brain areas. They have cell division. One is hippocampus. That's the area associated with memory. They do have cell division. Another one is in your ventricle, in one of your ventricle. Those empty space in the brain. And the third one is in your epithelium, the olfactory cortex. That's the smell area. So only these 3 areas, they can have cell division. The others, no cell division. So these neurons, they have very long life. There's a very unique part. The last one, high metabolic rate. Your brain only weighs about 2% of your body weight. So if you weigh about 150 pounds, your brain is 3 pounds. It takes about 10 to 20% of your body energy, the blood flow. So when you're resting, it's about 10%. And when you take in the test, you scratch your head, you think about the answer, it can go to 20%. It takes a lot. It's like if you weigh 150 pounds, every day I give you 1,500 pounds of steak, ask you eat it. That's your brain. It takes a lot of energy. And if you stop the blood flow for 3 minutes, they won't be happy. They need a lot of energy, produce a lot of ATP, and after 3 minutes they start to die and they stroke. So they use a lot of energy. And because they produce a lot of waste particle, you have the supporting cells, we call them glia cells. And these glia cells, you actually have 10 times more glia cells. And you have 100 billion of neurons. You actually have 10 times more glia cells. They are the supporting unit. This slide shows you this star, these are the neurons. And these dots, these are the nuclei of the glia cells. You actually have 10 times more. They don't produce electrical signal. Their function is supporting. So scientists used to think they just fill the space, but they have more function. Like they support the cell, and we found some disease actually happens in the glia cells, like Alzheimer's disease. We believe it starts from the glia cells because they're supposed to clean the garbage those neurons create. And when they don't clean the garbage, those garbage accumulate in front of your house. After a few weeks, you get sick. So it turned out the whole brain shrink. And they found a lot of the tau protein, the beta amyloid protein, accumulated in the Alzheimer patients. So we found more and more disease happen in the glia cell. Let's look at one example. This is the myelin. We'll talk about this structure. It's like an insulation of the axon outside. And their function is to make the signal, electrical signal conduction faster. And we have an autoimmune disease. Autoimmune disease is your immune system. They're supposed to attack the bad bacteria and leave your body cell alone. And sometimes they make a mistake. They will attack your own cells. That's autoimmune disease. And multiple sclerosis, that's one neuronal disease. That's your immune system attack this. Oligodendrocyte, this is one of the glia cells. And it damaged the myelin. And turned out those electric signals, sometimes they can go out, sometimes they could not go out. So the symptom of patient with multiple sclerosis is their motor control. Because, well, these signals supposed to go out from your brain to control your skeletal muscle. And they could not control the muscle. And turned out their muscle is healthy. The problem is not the muscle, it's the signal. It happened in the neuron. So far, no treatment. We can only slow down the process, and we could not really cure it. So that's a glia cell. And there's another one called the Schwann cell. Its function is create myelin. The myelin, this structure is the myelin. So in the central nervous system, the oligodendrocyte create the myelin. In the peripheral nervous system is the Schwann cell. Both of them create the myelin, cause the insulation. So in the neuron, they have the dendrite, there's the finger that receive the input. This one is called the axon. And this area is called the axon hillock. That's the action potential is generated. And the action potential, that's the big electrical signal. It will jump through this node, they call the node of Ranvier. And why you have the node of Ranvier? Because you have the myelin. The myelin insulate about 90% of the axon, so the electrical signal only need to worry about those 10% that jump between the node of Ranvier, so they can go out. And the Schwann cell and oligodendrocyte, and they both create the myelin, so they speed up the transduction. And multiple sclerosis is the immune system attack this. So it turned out the signal sometimes they could not go out. So in biological psychology, we study what happens, use the biological evidence to explain the behavior. So of course, we're going to spend a lot of time talk about this, our biggest machine. So far, we know very little about the brain. It will take another century to fully understand it. And today's lecture will focus on the cell. The cell, that's the neuron. So they have the cell body, of course, and they have the dendrite. That's where they receive the input. And this one is called the axon. That's where they extend out to connect with the other neuron. How many neurons do you have? Depends on the animal, right? Human, 100 billion. It's about half of the number of the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. We live in the Milky Way galaxy. So in your brain, you have half of the number of stars in the Milky Way galaxy. And each neuron can create hundreds of connection with other neurons, and you can do the math. You think about the possibility to create those neural network is infinite, and that's what makes your brain unique. So in humans' brain, we have about 100 billion neurons. Most of them stay in the brain. Cerebellum, that's a very unique area. That's the area they for balancing. They're for balancing, physically balance your body, and it can be easily affected by alcohol. So when you drink alcohol, you find you don't walk well, don't walk straight, and that's because the cerebellum being affected. And in other animals, they have less. So like fruit fly, they have 100,000. Well, that's enough for them to find the food to reproduce, but not too many for create consciousness. Cockroach, well, 1 million. It's difficult to kill a cockroach because they have neuron. They know they can protect themselves. If you like cat, your cat has 1 billion. Well, that's enough. So they have mood, right? Sometimes the cat get angry with you. And chimpanzee, well, 7 billions. That's why they are very smart. Some chimpanzees can learn the sign language, and elephant have 23 billions. Elephant actually have a bigger brain than human do. We are not looking at the brain size. We are looking at the brain to body ratio. So it turned out when we compare the brain size with the body weight, human is the top one, and we have 100 billion neurons inside. So we are on the top of the pyramid of whole species because we have the biggest brain to body ratio, and we have 100 billion of neurons. And chimpanzee is number 2. And let's look at the neuron. Neurons have very unique shape. They have those finger-like, we call them dendrite, and they have an arm extend out. This is called the axon. So they have very unique shape. Most cells in the body look like a bowl, but neurons look like a star. And this area is called the axon hillock, and that's where the action potential. Today we'll talk about the action potential is generated, and they will send the action potential out, and to synapse, it will innervate other neurons, sometimes skeletal muscle, like this one is a motor neuron, so its job is to control your muscle. Could be a muscle, could be a neuron. Most of the time it's neuron. And when you innervate the neurons, usually it innervates the other dendrites of other neurons. So that's how they form the neural network. And so far we believe your consciousness, your emotion, your memory are all stored in the neural network. And the amazing part is the neural network is not fixed. It can reconnect, disconnect, and reconnect with other neurons. And that explains sometimes you lose your memory if you don't use it. And that's because the connection disappears. And the advantage is you are always capable of learning new stuff. So you can teach your old dog new tricks. They just learn slower. So they are able to connect with other connection. And how do you keep your old memory? Repetition. So you need repetition is the key to keep those connections fixed there. And your brain know, okay, this connection is important because you repeat it, and it will stay there. So repetition is the key. So the neuron have the cell body, have the dendrite, receive the input, axon, and that's where they send the signal out. So the axons, you will send the electrical signal, and usually it will go to the dendrite, sometimes go to the cell body of the other neuron, because on average, every neuron receives hundreds, if not thousands of input, so some of them will go to the cell body. And the axon part are covered with myelin. So myelin is the insulated structure created by the oligodendrocyte in the central nervous system, Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system, and their function is speed up the conduction. Because over 90% of the axon being myelinated, and the electrical signal only need to worry about those 10% or jump between those nodes. They got node of Ranvier. And neuron use electrical and chemical signal. So the neurotransmitter is the chemical signal. We'll talk about it next time, and that's in the synapse. Today we'll mainly focus on the electrical signal, how they generate the action potential and send it through the whole axon, go to the other neuron. Okay, let's take a short break.